Third final in the space of 14 days.
Mesdames et messieurs, representing Korea, 16 years old,
Cheon-soo of South Korea, second in her first ever World Cup in Vila and then won her second World Cup in Chamonix. She's most people's favourite to win here this evening, but I think there's one or two women in that lineup who will have something to say about that. So observation begins for the women. I think quite sensibly you might be able to see the Briancon organisers sending people on stage to prevent the climbers falling off backwards as they study the route. But yeah, 6 minutes begins. And after a very quiet men's observation with minimal communication, what will we see this time?
Yeah, 3 Slovenians in the final. We talked about the 3 Japanese guys all observing individually rather than as a team, and the 3 Slovenian women all working together instantly there.
Yeah, they've instantly teamed up, and interestingly enough, Natsuki Tani, Cheon-soo and Yutong Jang have also teamed up.
Yeah, China, Korea and Japan all together. I wonder which language they're opting for.
I was kind of pondering that.
Is that the international climbing language of this one, that one, this one?
Everyone knows what a boffin move means, don't they?
Crimp, jug, crimp.
Yeah, get that. Get that. So yeah, Vita Lucan, by the way, just nipped off to the side and has come back with new information for the other 2 climbers. So the Slovenians working very closely together. Here you can see Mia Krambel on the left, Janja Gambra in the middle, and Vita Lucan on the right. Nina Artaud and Ashima, as it stands, the only 2 climbers kind of doing their own thing. Natsuki Tani and Cheon-soo. Again, comparing notes, Yutong Jang now just quietly studying the route through her binoculars. Mike, you had a word with Carles, our chief route setter on the women's route. What have we got in store?
So yesterday the women and the men's route were slightly different in styles. The men had the bigger fiberglass volumes and a bit more wrestling. It was still an endurance-based route, but it was kind of a bit more funky than the women's line, and they've switched it tonight. So the women now have a few bigger holds, but overall, I would say the style remains Briancon style. It's crimpy, it's got a few bigger holes, but a lot of them have got screw-on jibs added to the top of them to dial down the difficulty slightly compared to just sort of smashing between big fiberglass volumes. There's a tricky little sequence just turning onto the first 45-degree section, and this head wall you can see it's just go, go, go all the way to the top. These big, wide, slopey pinches with a couple of bad crimps and undercuts interspersed. And a bit of a jump to finish potentially.
Potentially, all right. Well, it finishes on the same huge ice cream cone volume that the men's route would have finished on had we seen anyone get there.
Yeah, the only reason I say potentially is that it's not nice to kind of say this is exactly how it's going to happen, because we had 5 minutes at most with the route setting team, and I want the athletes to produce the story for us, not the route setters tell us how it's done. And yeah, there's always plenty of methods up there. The climbers at this level never cease to surprise with some of the tricks and methods they come out with.
Yeah, we've said it before, it's like herding cats trying to get climbers to do a move the way you want them to do it. And quite sensibly, when you chat to the route setters in general, they will say, well, there's no point trying to make them do a move a certain way. You've got to set it. You think you've covered every base, and then you just let them loose on it, but you can't get too fixated on making climbers do something.
Yeah, in the route setting game, in the UK at least, we call it forcing the move. You could spend hours trying to force the climbers to do it one way, and then they just match this hold that you never thought was possible to match and do it somewhere completely different. So it's you create the journey, you create the road, you create the path, create the route that you want people to go in, but you have to always consider the other options.
Still, Natsuki Tani and Cheon-soo, who are the 2 highest ranked climbers going into the final, working closely together. That is the scene here in Briancon. Darkness beginning to fall in the valley. The wall illuminated against the mountains. Really is a stunning location.
Interesting now, Ashima for the first time has just dropped in with one of the other athletes. You can just see her on the bottom left of the screen there.
Yeah, she's chatting to Yutong Jiang. Again, not sure what the shared language would be. Very interesting. Climbers going up and having a feel of some of the early holds. They can't pull onto the wall, but they can stand and feel anything that they can reach from the ground.
Yeah, the Slovenian team is still shoulder to shoulder. Nobody going to be breaking that team up, I don't think. Nobody going to be dropping in for any info on that little lineup.
Of course, we're off to Slovenia for it's actually the next Lead World Cup. Is in Kranj at the end of September, so it's a long way off, but yeah, the next Lead World Cup will be in their home country. Very historic venue over in Kranj, about 20 minutes north of London. First, the small matter of a win in Briancon, one of the most
small matter of the World Championships as well.
Oh yeah, I knew there was something else. It'll be in the second week of August. We've got a speed lead World Championship, and then a combined one as well, a 4 select. More observations, 6 minutes, and talk about herding stage after the observation. Can we challenging this time? They all go fairly willingly without anyone needing to get beaten on the way off. get on stage one.
It's going to be a really interesting one this tonight, Charlie. Storylines really is overtaking Yanya really obviously in terms of the result, in terms of ability going into the final. Yanya just looks a little bit off the pace. You could see yesterday when she fell off the top move that she was pretty annoyed, and she out to tonight. As always, she's be a hard one to bet against, but Cheyunsu in particular is looking really on form at the moment. Natsuki Tani had a lot of hope going into the Chamonix finals just last week, but seemed to just lose their beta a little bit at the bottom of the wall. Didn't seem to quite have the power through this kind of awkward foot section there last week. So it's going to be a really interesting one, this one. I think the route, I wouldn't say the route suits one climber over another. At the start of the competition, one of the route setters, Jan Zabranik, was just saying it's really difficult to set for this field in the women's competition now, because you've got someone like Yanya in there, of course, and Ashima. Kind of very experienced, and they're potentially better at kind of the more modern coordination moves. Have got a lot more experience than that, but then you've got some of these really young athletes, 15, 16-year-olds coming through who are really good and really fit. They can hold on to the wall for a very long time on the right hold. Good on these big jumpy moves, and yeah, we've not seen them challenged in that way. There's something here tonight on this route, but it looks like, unless there's pure endurance, this one again.
Very interesting as well to see Natsuki Tani and Yutong Jiang up in notes. Bilingual, should be able, she has a shared language at least with Natsuki. On the right, The women will be on the left. I'm very pleased to say that Fresh to talk to us again. Jan, we've just seen the women's observation. What can we expect from the route?
Well, we expect the female very intense route, climbing, you know, they climb to the middle, they can rest with the fight with the pinches, and we can hopefully see some good
Top six just keeps coming. Is it just a pure test of endurance?
Yeah, it's also hard to clip, it's hard to move, make me stand are more and more tired. And the holds for the female are not very small, but also for
and when you set these routes 3 weeks ago, many the new
through the spinal cord. Compared to this final route, to the routes what we actually climbed and experienced. So the top very, very close to each other. So our goal was to make the section on the top very consistent, and we extended the amount of moves. We did like harder, but we extended the amount.
So you add moves.
Few more moves before, you know, before the section was moves, and now it's
once again, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And I was going to say enjoy the final. You probably don't enjoy it, but try to enjoy it.
I try to enjoy it.
Time, man. We'll get Jan's perspective.
Yeah.
Interesting that he said they did 8 top, just to trying to separate the climbers.
Yeah, this is kind of Jay serving one, or it's going to kind of go down to the traditional last climber, best climber. Let's see.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hidemasa Nishida came out first in the men's final. It can't see a few tops here. He ends up winning the competition, so his hard teams there. Vita Lucan, we can see that warm up to the Briancon crowd and doesn't even acknowledges them. So here goes Vita Lucan.
Really nice hexagon of kind of pink and black volumes, all just slightly overlapping each other to offer a few little crimson footholds into another section of overlapping volumes. Vika just struggling with actually the first 2 quick draws. That nice little flip with the right hand into the underside of that volume, up to another volume before going into these yellow volumes with the small red additions on the nose. Vita showing so much power through there. It's a confident clip, actually. It was a right hand, right foot clip, and then just floating out to this left hand before campusing the foot up. There is a small additional jib on top of that big fiberglass volume. She's really wrapped it under the fingers at the moment, sort of skin wrapping it.
See this route really kicking in from the start. Awkward position from Vita. Has to go now.
Next hold is a big sinker pocket up and left, quite far to go though.
Crowd cheering. They've had a bit of a wait since the men's final. You can see already Vita really got her work cut out, got in a really awkward position with her hands right in front of her chest, facing up.
Yeah, it looked like she couldn't quite decide where to put the feet, whether she'd get them high and heel or hook on those 2 big blobs she's standing on now. Ended up sort of flipping the right hand to an undercut. We had to fight quite hard through that section. Gets a nice double clip there though.
Yeah, a bit like the men's route. You got that long extended draw and then another one just a metre or so to the side of it. Really has to go for it, Vita and this route is really testing her really early on.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. The women's route now starts to go into a section of bigger holds. Again, it's big holds, but it's got small little edges on them. And it'd be interesting to see the sequence used for this next right to left section. It was left to right in the men's, women's goes right to left. She's got a big sort of planet hold for her, big Saturn for her right foot, and heading up to another big Saturn for her left. Out far on the left hand side. Again, just switches the hands.
Another big committed move out left for Vita. She's climbing really strongly here, but this route is offering a lot of challenges.
High risk moment there. Went for the big smash out left and then left the feet behind because it's such a wide move, and quickly tapped the right hand in on the screw on before campusing in and matching, and now will probably take a decent rest. She's on an absolutely massive ledge. It's high risk to get there. We've seen her feet cut a couple of times up to this point.
Yeah, she is taking a long rest. She's actually, by the way, only at hold 20 of a total of 42, and with 12 moves that we described as very hard on the head wall alone. She needs to get motoring. 2.5 minutes remaining. It's a really good first effort from Vita Lucan.
She's just fading on the right arm there.
Yeah, now she's got a big committed move up on that same right arm. Somehow hangs onto it in a really powerful position. Hands level with her ears, pushing outwards.
Yes, trying to open the elevator doors between those two holes.
So now, again, manages to at least get a quick chalk up, even if we couldn't quite call it a rest. That foothold's just a bit further away than you want it to be for the right foot. She actually, I think, is opting not to use it. And now she'll reach round and use it for the next move. The elbows are out. She's looking tired, Vita Lucan, but she's been battling from the very start, and she's still going as she heads towards the final panel of the Briancon wall. This is where the endurance really comes in. There's tough move after tough move. Crowd really getting behind her. They know they're watching a real scrap here. Goes up with the right hand. Now she's onto the head wall. Has to avoid standing on the bolt, gets the right foot up, dabs up with the left hand, and finally we lose her. That is a brilliant first effort from Vita Lucan. Strong fight, and Mike, first impressions, we've got a real route on our hands here.
Yeah, that was ace. Got through the bottom section quite slowly, but used up a lot of power. Took that big rest out on the left. It was mostly sort of a she had a heel up there resting both hands quite well, but then it got really powerful through that section of shoulders. Cool at the elevator doors, opposing shoulder holds, and then into just these kind of minuscule crimps. They actually seemed to really suit her style. She looked desperately pumped in the right arm, and then just seemed to wrap these crimps one after the other. Just a little jump lower down.
There's a lot of dramatic moments in that.
It was a superb battle.
Yeah, brilliant. Ace was the word you used. Not heard anyone say that for about 2 decades. It was absolutely spot on. So out next, we've got the only French climber in either the men's or the women's competitions. It is Nina Artaud.
This is what we were saying, Charlie, just at the start of the broadcast really about these routes. They're just classic endurance test pieces where you can get really pumped and then just keep going. One little more move, one more move, maybe scrape one more move after you think you've already gone. You get completely flamed, and somehow the moves aren't too big, so you can just keep crimping your way up. That was what exactly we see Vita Lucan there, still breathing so hard. Yeah, good opening performance and setting up what could be a really nice high point actually.
And no surprise that Nina Artaud getting a very big reception from the Briancon crowd. I'm just looking out, I think the people still arriving. The crowd seems to have increased even further since the last time I looked over my shoulder. Now she's ready to roll. You can see there, when you're on the stage, your camera's doing a good job. With those lights in your face, you basically can't see the crowd, which may or may not be a good thing, because you'll get an awful shock when you get a 5 moves up the route, look over and the lights aren't quite as in your face. On the stage itself, you can barely see anything.
Yeah, I think
of the
you
crowd.
you get that kind of nice stage presence where you're isolated from what's going on behind you, I think, and a lot of these climbers, they'll be very good at switching it off. You know, the crowd wouldn't be able to tell you, they're just completely in performance mode.
The crowd cheering pretty much every move from Nina Artaud. She's just climbing in her first final here in her home country, and got a pretty committing move in about 30 seconds time. That big jump flips off the left, and neither look particularly comfortable, to be honest, but left looks slightly better.
This is where Vita Lucan just struggled a little bit with her feet. Nina Artaud looking super casual to get to that big pocket.
The move, Vita Lucan really cut loose. Nina Artaud looked a little more controlled, less spectacular. But left looks slightly better.
This is where Vita Lucan just struggled a little bit with her feet. Nina Artaud looking super casual to get to that big pocket.
The move, Vita Lucan really cut loose. Nina Artaud looked a little more controlled, less spectacular.